Let's talk about the prerequisites, or the things that I find important with photography before I dive into fully the different photo shoots that I'm going to take you along for. One of these things is color. Now, when I first started photography, I shot a lot of black and white. And I think the process there is really seeing shapes first, and then as I matured, I started seeing color better, and then since, pretty much all my work has been color. And I think a lot of people struggle a little bit with it. So I'm going to tell you the basics of color. It's not that hard, and Adobe has this extraordinary tool where you don't really need to know the RGBs and the CMYKs and what's opposite, because it's all there for you visual, and they have this in a way that you could do families of colors, you could do opposite colors, and then give you a clear visual of what the different families are. And we're going to look at a few different things. What's extraordinary in photography is that most of the color imagery that really strikes people either have a family of color or they have opposing colors. We see it a ton in movies where they either go all warm. The perfect example is one of my inspirations, which is Brother Where Art Thou, where everything was muted and toned down in the warm colors. You look at movie posters, the guys here at RGG showed a few to me, and they're all in the cooler tones in the shadows, and they're this yellowish tones in the higher end where the skin tones sit. So you get this beautiful contrast where the skin tones pop, and then the shadows and the background goes towards the bluer tones. And we're going to explore this Adobe tool a little bit, and you can see how these things just sit opposite each other. So let's dive into it a little bit. So if you go to color.adobe.com, it will take you to this homepage, and it's really quite exquisite. It will give you a handle. It will start you out at the top here. There's a color space called analogous, which will give you a family of colors within the RGB or the CMYK spectrum. So if you follow the screen, here's the yellow, we'll follow it into the reds and magentas, and you can see how this changes. You know, if you want to make it less saturated, you can pull it in, and you see how these kind of shapes changes. You can also take it darker down in here, and you can come into the nighttime, more moody images. For our 4 images, for our 4 photo shoots, there's very specific colors. Now for one of them, called Conversations, which I will show you in a second, we live in this color space you see on the screen right now. It's all moody, living in the blue teal tones of nighttime. We are going to take you outside and work in this color space. When the sun gets low on the horizon, it gets really warm. And for this image called The Train, we have this color space. Now, you could work on this in different ways, but we can go to opposite colors here. In the complementary color space, you can see that we get opposites. Now, I just mentioned this, right, where you have the warmer skin tones and the cooler shadows. And you see how this works within this complementary color space. We did this for this image called The Crash, and we're living just about in here, where we took this green forest, pushed the light back into the moodier overcast tones, and then added a red dress in there. It's not perfectly opposite like you see here. Maybe something in here is where the dress color is, and are right about there. So you should explore this website on your own, because it's really quite easy then to understand where the color space sit. Instead of trying to do all the theory, explore this. Way easier to learn by doing, and you will really quickly get a hold of color. When we start retouching, I will use curves a lot, and they play on the opposite colors. And if you have any sort of confusion in the RGB color space, which I use, pulling the curves up and down, you can come in here and see easily that if I pull the yellow curve up, it will also pull the blue curve. So the blue spectrum sit at the bottom of the curves, the yellow sit at the top. So we'll explore that a little bit in retouching, but this is something you can return to get an understanding of how it works. There's 2 ways really to work with color in photography. The first is the light, which we control by the time of day we take the picture, and then of course the way we style it. So I want to talk about the first, which is the sun and how that works, and then how we style it after. If you see a rainbow in the sky, you see all the color spectra of the sun. That color spectra creates white light. Now, as the sun gets lower to the horizon, imagine you have a color spectra. It will cut off half of that rainbow colored spectrum. And what you're left with is only the warm tones. And that's the reason we get warm light in the afternoon. When that dips underneath the horizon, the only thing that shines up is the blue and purple tones. And that's why you get really blue light after the sun goes down. You don't really need to know the theory behind it, but to know that in the evening, mornings, prior or after the sun comes up, you get a blue color palette. In the mid-range, so just as the sun hit the horizon, you get a really warm tone. And in the middle of the day, you get 5500 Kelvin. I'm mentioning this number not because you need to know it, but for what the camera should be on when you take pictures. I truly encourage you to turn off the auto white balance on your camera. The auto white balance will neutralize everything that you take at any time of the day. If you're inside, outside, night, evening, it will always look neutral to you. And I think that's not beneficial at all if you want to embrace and work with color. You want to know what kind of color palette the light gives you, and then you can adjust it afterwards in Photoshop. So make sure to put your color balance at 5500, which is neutral daytime light, and then you can see what the sun does to your color palette as the day changes. On the screen now, you see 3 screen grabs from Capture One. Nothing has been done with these. They're all set at 5500, and they are nothing but screen grabs. And you could then see the different color that the camera captures throughout the day. Top one was done during our scout. Sun is straight up above, no shadows there really, and it gives you a neutral palette. The middle one is shot at sunset. Beautiful, low-reeking shadows. I say beautiful because that's my sensibility when it comes to light. Maybe you like the top one. So just for me to be neutral in this, top one neutral color, middle one warmer tones right at sunset or sunrise, and the bottom one has the nighttime quality, that blue light that happens after the sun dips underneath the horizon. So that's really the practicality of the way the sun shapes color when we take pictures. And those are the ones that we have to work with. There's interior light. So if you like to shoot inside, there's a huge color range there as well between fluorescence, which will give you a green color. There's the daylight bulbs that will give you a neutral color. And then there's the warmer classic bulbs, which will give you a lot warmer color. I don't want to get into the theories behind it too much. I wanted this to be practical. So keep your camera at 5500, stay away from auto white balance, and start taking pictures and explore light in the different scenarios that you are drawn to. And you will quickly find what kind of color and what kind of temperature you have in that when you take the pictures that you love. So that's one part to color, the one that we do or the one that we get when we take our pictures. To complement this, there's the styling. There's the colors of the things that we put into our photographs. If you are conscious about what the background is, we can play with it to either create a family, which I showed you on the Adobe Color tool, or create opposite colors. And that's exactly what we have worked with in this tutorial. We have done it both because I like it, but also to show you that color is truly important when it comes to creating emotion. I don't think it's enough talked about, but color is extremely, extremely important in the way we perceive things. Just a quick study. If you put a group in a room that's neutral colored, they will feel colder a lot sooner than if you put them in a room that has warm color. Stanford study, scientifically done. So color affects us in really, really powerful ways. So if you want to describe an emotion, you could also ask yourself, what does this emotion feel like to me color-wise, right? We all have the saying, so I feel blue today. So does blue describe the feeling that you want the picture to have? It's one question that you could ask yourself. It's truly important, I think, to set the stage not only with the talent that you like or the theme that you like, but also the color that you like. So I'm going to take you to some of the images that we're going to go through in this tutorial, and I'll show you how we played with color. So on the screen, you see 4 images that we are going to go and create shortly. But I want to show them to you as we talk about color, because we've been very deliberate about this. In the top left one, forest scene. And as we describe later on in the pre-production to this, I wanted this forest to feel sort of dense and moody. We didn't want to have sun on it. So 2 things happen then. Without the sun comes a bluer palette combined with a green, which pushes it into like a bluer greenish tone. We look at the opposite colors on the color wheel in Adobe, and we see the opposite of that is a red warmer tone, right? So making sure when we style the second part to color with either a complementary color or an opposite color to the background, we'll make sure that we have a color palette that really fits together in the image. If you look at the color wheel on the screen now, where you have every color in the scene, you see that it's kind of distracting. It does not make for an amazing picture if you have every color there is. So for me and my sensibilities, the way I like to teach this stuff is stay to either a family of color or a family of opposing color. That way your eye will find its focus points really quickly. So as you see in the top one, green, bluish background combined with a warmer, redder foreground element. Leaves the eye to go straight to the color and it will pop. The opposite example is the family of colors which you see in 3 of these photographs. The top right one, conversations. Cinematic, all blue. That for me was a breakup sort of scenario, so I wanted it to feel blue. That's all pushed mostly on the computer, and we'll talk about that. That was all shot with available light, with light poles, which usually goes warm. So I could have taken this picture in that warmer tone, but we wanted to go blue and really tweaked it in Capture One to give that palette. On the bottom left, you see our location from Bishop, Nevada. And this is the image I chose to work with from the 3 that I just showed you for the different colors that the sun give you. For me, this was a warmer palette. That was the feeling that I wanted. It's kind of the West. The grass had that texture and that warmth to it, and I wanted to embrace that. So if I came to this place and this was all green and vibrant, maybe this should have been, in the middle of the day sort of thing to really enhance that. With the grass being all burnt and had that warm tone, to let the sun come through that and really highlight it with its warmth creates sort of this glow to that grass. So embracing what is there and adding the light to it created this color palette which sits in the warmer tones. I briefly talked about the styling part. It's very obvious in the top left where we have the green background opposing colors into the red. We brought in the red dress, and that's where our eye goes for the attention. Now, there's 2 things we haven't talked about, which are the colorless colors, which is black and white. So when I work with a blue palette for the top right, for the conversations, I style the guys in a dark gray suit and the girl in a black sort of lingerie outfit, fitting into the palette without either standing out or blending in. Neutral black and white. Same thing really for the bottom left. Style this with warmer clothes for the guy and a black dress for the girl. If I were to do anything but black and white in this for the clothing, I would have chosen maybe a blue dress that would contrast this color palette, or a yellow dress that would sit into the color palette. So that's kind of how I think about color. I would step away from the theory of it. Just know those 3 colors that the sun gives you. Explore the colors that interior lights give you, and then be mindful when you style it. Style it with a family of colors or an opposite color, and you'll be in great shape. What I would stay away from is every color. That just gets confusing, your eye doesn't know where to go, and it doesn't make for a beautiful, colorful photograph. So if you want some examples of people that do color brilliantly, first look at movies. And when you look at movies, be very conscious of their color palette and use of emotion attached to color. They always give a feel to every movie there is. Wes Anderson, just extraordinary. And he is the king of family of colors. And he pretty much always subdues them a bit, so they have this pastelish Art Deco feel to it. I would also maybe look at the Coen brothers, extraordinary in color. I already mentioned Brother, Where Art Thou? Very specific color palette. Look at Fargo, very specific color palette. When you come into the still world, I would look at Annie Leibovitz is brilliant at color as well, but she's leaning more on the composition part, which we'll get to next. But look at Merton Marcus, for instance. Fashion guys that just do extraordinary color. Also in a family, but also complementary colors. So that would be my advice for color if you want to explore it. Now be aware of it in everything you look at, and you will create sort of a set of color that you're drawn to that you could apply in your photography going forward.